Welcome to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer, a full show of tips and practical strategies to repair, rebuild, and strengthen your relationship. If you are currently stuck, wondering if your marriage can be saved, or you know you want to save it but don't know how to go about changing it, this show is for you. To book your free marriage strategy session with Nicola, get the free marriage ebook or donate. If you are enjoying the show and want to help keep it flowing, visit www.nicolabeer.com.
Hi and welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm going to be talking again about open marriages today. I'm going to be going over the pros and the cons of open marriages. And of course, open marriages is not a new topic. However, it's something that a lot of marriage specialists out there, shall we say, or bloggers, podcasters, they shy away from. And this is a topic that a lot of people face when their marriage comes to a difficulty, when one person wants a divorce. Sometimes they may say to each other, or someone might think in their head before the marriage ends, oh, what about an open marriage? Could that work for you? Could that work for me? And they want to explore that. So actually this is becoming something that is becoming more and more popular for couples to talk to me about, or individuals to talk to me about. Sometimes I have men say to me, how can I bring up the topic with my wife? Or women saying, I want to have sex and my husband doesn't, so can this work for me? And we'll talk through it. So if you're struggling in this area and you want to discuss having some support and guidance around this, you can visit my website, nicolabeer.com, and I would love to hear from you either way. And just a big shout out to say thank you for all the people that have left me a rating and review. This really does helps me to create more content, helps me to make the show more visible so more people get the support they need. So if you haven't, I would so be grateful, as well as you checking out and subscribing to my YouTube channel, as that's something new that I'm doing. I'm also doing Instagram and Facebook. So if you like Facebook more or Instagram more, then please do join me. I'm becoming more out there on the social networks because I've had such great feedback from my podcast, and I really want people to feel that they're not alone when they're going through marriage struggles, that other people are going through the same thing, and to share some helpful tips. So today's topic is about the pros and the cons of open marriages. I am going to share a few stories. Of course, I have changed both the names of the people in these stories as well as identifying characteristics, because I really want to protect their identity, and I'm sharing these stories to give you a better understanding of how open marriages can be good for some people and not so good for other people and couples. So the pros of open marriage. One of the biggest pros of open marriage is that it can meet your sexual or emotional needs. It's very common for some couples to choose to have an open marriage because it fulfills one or both of the husband's and wife's desires. Maybe they stopped having engaging, passionate sex. Maybe they're not interested in sex in each other. Maybe they want to add a bit more variety. Maybe someone is not interested in sexual activity, maybe forever, or whatever they're going through at the moment. Sometimes it can be because one partner is aging and they can no longer physically be intimate, or that they are changing emotionally. I have had a lady that I worked with to explore whether she wanted to stay in her marriage, whether she wanted an open marriage, whether she wanted a divorce. And her dilemma was that her husband was becoming very forgetful. There was no longer engaging conversations. He was sometimes becoming aggressive. She found that she was more looking after him like a child. And while she didn't want to leave him, she also didn't want to live the rest of her life in a relationship where it wasn't equal, where she was doing the caring and the looking after, and she didn't have someone to share her life with emotionally and intimately. And in that case, we were exploring whether an open marriage would be right for her and what that might look like if it was. So that's one area. Another area to mention is that a pro of it is the honesty. Sometimes open marriages can keep the relationship honest, can keep the relationship thriving because it's trusting one another. You're openly communicating your feelings, your desires, your wants. You're sharing your desires for other people. You are sharing what you're doing with anybody else outside of the relationship, and it keeps things honest rather than someone cheating, rather than someone wanting somebody else, flirting with somebody else, having sex with somebody else, and it's a secret, it's a lie, and it's going against the agreement that the couple have. Knowing that there is no judgment, that both spouses want to work together to both be happy, they agree on the open marriage, and they agree on the rules, this can sometimes be very supportive and very good. Sometimes an open marriage can have a very positive impact on a relationship. Although an open marriage isn't the way to fix issues in a relationship, it can have a positive impact because you may then open up to trying new things differently and sexually with each other. It may create more passion, it may create more desire to go out on dates with each other, to try new things inside and outside the bedroom. Another pro that a lot of people say that open marriage gives them is it can take the pressure off the relationship. It can take the pressure off, okay, my husband or wife really wants sex all the time, they really want me to be available all the time, I can't be available for them all the time, I don't want to have sex with them all the time, so them having sex or having an emotional relationship with someone else enables me to focus on my work, or enables me to focus on the children, or enables me to have more time for my passion or hobby or whatever it is. And sometimes people find that it's not that there's less love between them, it's because that you're not meeting each other's time expectations, the priority in life expectations. One person might be lonely because the other one is so busy doing lots of different things or traveling a lot, or they're both when they're traveling, they're separate and they want to have relationships while they're separate, and they're traveling apart, living apart, long distance relationships. Sometimes open marriages can work in those cases if a person is open to it. And having multiple people that you can turn to can take the pressure off one person. So that I have seen has benefited some marriages. And then the last pro that sometimes people give with open marriages is exploring new interests with people. Being married means that you love one another, and because you love one another doesn't mean you have the same interests and activities. And you may find that you're totally in love with your husband or wife, and yet you don't have many things in common. Or you do have things in common, but you're bored of those things and you want some new and exciting things, and finding someone else that's more passionate about new different things can show you a new world, perhaps can show you a new culture, a new way of living, can add more excitement and passion to your life. Then you can share that with each other, and sometimes couples find this. So those are generally the pros that people have shared with me and that I have seen working with couples to navigate open marriages. And now let's talk about the cons. The biggest con, or one of the biggest cons, is definitely jealousy. It's the biggest concern around open marriages is, are you or your husband able to control the jealousy if you do decide to go down the route of having an open marriage? We all, as humans, have very emotionally strong connections to people. Especially, you have agreed when you got married that you're going to spend the rest of your life together through sickness and through health. You either love each other now, or you did love each other intensely at one point. And so it's very natural to feel threatened, to feel concerned that your partner is going to leave you for the other person, to feel judged, to feel compared to. It may affect your self-esteem. You may feel panic. You may feel constant anger, because jealousy is like that angry feeling or that worrying feeling. And it can make people more anxious, more down, more stressed. So this is definitely something to consider. The next most important thing is really, it is not a way to fix a marriage. If there are issues in the relationship, then do you really think introducing somebody else or multiple people is going to help? First of all, before you go down the open marriage route, if you both decide that's what you want to do, you will want to have some marriage coaching. I highly recommend that to, first of all, strengthen your connection, to rebuild trust if any trust is broken, to have that transparency, to work on your communication skills so that you can express yourselves freely and openly so that the open marriage can work. If you're doing it as a fix to save the relationship, to stop your husband or wife from leaving, it may backfire. So you'll definitely want to get some support in if this is your situation. And like we mentioned about time, so one of the biggest cons is in this busy environment, a lot of couples don't even have time for each other. They're not having time for quality conversation. One person is always on their phone, the other person may be on their laptop or TV, or workaholic, or really into the family so much that they're not making time for the relationship. And so, can you handle another person in your life? Do you have the time to dedicate to fulfill your husband or wife and another person or multiple people? Is there the space? Is there room in your life for an open marriage? And if you do have more time in your life, you need to be careful that you're not doing this because this is a way that you are trying to fill a void. Are you feeling emotionally lonely? Are you feeling emotionally disconnected? Are you trying to fill a void by having and doing this? So this is all things that really ideally need to be considered and thought about. And then there is the financial impact. Maintaining a happy marriage alongside extramarital relationships can mean spending more money. More money than if you were focusing on your husband or wife. For example, additional date nights, dinner and drinks can be quite expensive, birthdays, gifts, sexually and emotionally involving another person may bring extra financial expenses. And you want to discuss those because it can be very frustrating if you're feeling, okay, my husband hasn't taken out me for a date, or my wife never spends any time or money on me, and yet I found out he or she is paying for the drinks for someone else, or they're going and staying in a hotel, or they're going for a weekend away. So definitely having a limit and a discussion on finances is important. And then one of the biggest cons of this is the sexual health. When you're married to one person, you know the sexual history of that, and you know that you're both free from any sexually transmitted diseases. However, if you're adding other sexual relationships into the mix, then you're going to need to be careful. You're going to increase your risk, and so you're going to need to discuss how you navigate that and how you protect yourselves from that. So as you can see, there's a list of pros and different cons. There's no right way or wrong way to have an open marriage. It's got to be designed by the two of you. Some people do find that it's the perfect answer if they can no longer fulfill their husband or wife, or if divorce is just not an option that they can do because of their own beliefs and values, because it would upset their family, because it would have big financial implications that they can't even consider. So they need to stay married, and for some people it can add to their relationship. For a lot of other people it can be adding distrust, jealousy, emotional upheaval, more arguing, more fallout, and not really work out very well. So I'm just going to share a few case studies of people that I've been working with, and of course, like I mentioned, names and identified characteristics have been changed. Roma and John have been married for over 15 years, and they have had a great married life, and they've been through lots of learning curves together, as they were both from different backgrounds and cultures. And so it took them time to adapt to one another and learn about each other's cultural norms. And yet they were very, very happy for many years in their marriage. Roma was a hot-blooded, passionate Spanish-Mexican lady, and John was a calm, relaxed Englishman. And as much as they worked well together in most situations, there was one area of married life that was beginning to slow down: their sex life. John was now at an age where he was losing interest in steamy sex and couldn't keep up with Roma, who had passion running through her veins. She wanted more in the bedroom as she matured. John suggested that they have an open marriage after Roma complaining consistently. John wanted to save the marriage and said that if she wanted to meet her sexual needs and desires outside of the relationship, she could. Roma struggled with this idea for a while, as she knew that she wanted to stay married to John. And together they placed conditions which would ultimately protect them from pain and allow Roma to feel satisfied. He asked Roma not to tell him when she was having relationships with other people, when she was going out with other people. He wanted to see her happy, but he didn't want to know any of the intimate details. And this worked great for them. They had many happy years together. Roma is able to fulfill her desires outside of the relationship. They don't discuss her sex life, and they're enjoying life as companions in their home. And John is still none the wiser when these sexual interactions are happening, and still has a solid, happy relationship with his wife. Another case study is of Greg and Lisa. And they had been exclusively married for 8 years. Lisa had been through a lot and was struggling to cope with her low moods and depression and anxiety. And because of the way Lisa had been feeling and not being present as a wife for Greg, they both decided that they would explore having an open marriage where Greg would get emotional support from someone else, interest and a sexual connection from someone else, while still remaining married to Lisa. The requirements were that no kissing would take place. Unfortunately, as Greg's relationship was at first getting deeper with his partner, he found that he kissed the new woman, let's call her that, in the first few days of their meeting, breaking early on the rules that they had agreed together of the open marriage. In fact, Greg then became very infatuated with his new relationship and found himself in love with the new lady, and now finds himself in love with two people. So their marriage is now in crisis. They're having to work through what this means for the future, as it crossed the boundaries that they had hoped that would protect their marriage. Greg is confused, not knowing what he wants, and Lisa is angry, heartbroken, and worried about the future. And then there is a couple that I got to know and support, the lady who had been married for 27 years. They had a fruitful marriage, 2 children, built a loving home together. However, Philip began to lose his memory and would become very forgetful of things and was aging quite quickly. And this was very difficult for Trish to live with. She felt lonely and isolated. Then she met someone in her community circle who became her emotional companion, and Trish asked Philip if she could go on holiday and spend nights away with Daniel that she met and have an open marriage. Philip said yes, and although Trish was unsure if he really knew what that meant, it was working for them for quite some time. For a while, Trish had a lot of guilt, falling in love with someone else, and was also found it difficult carrying the emotional burden of not being 100% sure if Philip really knew what an open marriage meant and really knew that she had a new lover, although she really did suspect that he did know that. Her and Philip laughed on a daily basis. She made sure all of his food, his cleaning and psychological needs were met and taken care of. And as I mentioned, it was working well for them both until the wider family got involved and started accusing her of having an affair, of cheating her husband out of money, and it all got very, very nasty. And the pain of all of this was too much for Trish to live with, and so she filed for divorce, and the family ended up looking after Philip, which was not what either of them wanted. So as you can see from this, there are many different examples where open marriages can be good for some couples, can bring some benefits, and it can also have many limitations, many challenges, many negative impacts. And again, it's not for me to say yes or no if that is right for you or for your relationship. It's something that you need to explore, that you need to decide. So I hope this has been useful to you. As I mentioned, I am going to be creating some videos on my YouTube channel. It's also going to be put out on my Facebook group, Loving, Living and Letting Go. So do subscribe to that, as well as my Instagram. So if you're interested in any of this, you can follow me on Instagram, Nicola Beer Official, or continue listening to the show. Thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you for listening to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer. To book your free marriage strategy session today, you can visit www.nicolabeer.com, where you can also get the free marriage fixing ebook, request a topic for the show, and make a donation if the show has been of benefit to you and you want to help keep it going. We wish you an amazing love-filled day ahead.